So you want to get into content creation, but you have no idea where to start, whether that be TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, any of that. Well, I'm here to help with that. And thankfully, content creation doesn't have to be this stressful beast or this huge organized monster that's going to take away so much of your free time. It can be a fun outlet like writing in a diary or going to work out or anything else. Just have fun with it. So of course, let's start with some of the most common things that we need to figure out first. 1, do you need a fancy camera? Absolutely not. Don't worry about a fancy camera, in fact. For years, I actually filmed on just my phone. 1, because it was a great way to find out if I even enjoyed content creation in the first place. 2, it allowed me to stress my creativity with just my phone. And 3, it saves me money. Not everybody has buku bucks to throw out on expensive camera gear. And on top of that, if your quality is great, but your content itself isn't that entertaining, no one's still gonna watch it. So don't worry about that. 2, do you need fancy equipment, lighting gear and all that? Absolutely not. Right now I'm filming in front of some overhead lights, a cheapo $10, $12 Amazon light, and a window, right? That's all I needed. Extra lights can be helpful to manipulate the scene when or where you want to, the time of day and all that good stuff, but in reality, you don't need it. As long as you plan to shoot a daytime scene near a window or a nighttime scene at night, you're good to go. 3, do you need some expensive software in order to get filming and editing? Absolutely not. Not only are there tons of free apps to edit your videos right there on your phone, there's also free software for your computer if you want to sit down and editing. And I'll be walking you through one of the ones that I use today as well. And lastly, is it hard coming up with ideas for content? Do you have to be consistent? No. None of that matters. It's your content. It's how you want to do it. If you want to take it to a professional level and you start writing down your ideas and you start writing out scenes and shots that you want to make sure you capture, go ahead. If you also want to go right off the top in order to create, go ahead. It's your content. Do whatever you like. So today we are going to come up with an idea for a video. We are going to film that video. We are going to edit that video, and then we are going to post that video. Also that you get an idea of how to go about creating content and how easy and quick and seamless it can be. So first, coming up with an idea. How do you come up with an idea for a video? Well, that comes down to what you're interested in, what you're trying to do, and what your inspiration comes from. If you're a person who enjoys video games, well, you got an idea for a video. Talk about the current game that you're playing. Talk about the last frustration you had in a game. Talk about how you would improve that game. In this case, I'm going to be making a comedy video. So one thing I like to do when I don't want to be super organized and I do want it to be a stress-free project, I look around the room. I literally look around the room and I see, what can I make a video out of? And this might take 20 seconds. This might take 5 minutes. This might take 20 minutes. It's all up to you and what you're trying to do. In this case, I literally see my dog's toy, right? So now I come up with an idea of what happens if I were to kick this toy and make it look like it was my dog, right? Get a little bit of shock factor in there. People hate seeing animals injured for good reason, right? You gotta be an evil monster to do that. But they see that it's a toy, so it's also funny. Has that shock factor. So now I know I'm going to do something involving this toy, my dog, and go from there. So as you can see right now, I am in my living room. I don't have any fancy lighting set up. The only thing I have is the window open right to my right, as well as the lights on above me right here. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be making a video about different scenarios that people with small dogs deal with that leads to them almost stepping on or hitting their dog, right? Just funny things like that. And I came up with that video in what, 10 seconds, 20 seconds looking around the room. So let's go about filming it. So I'm thinking for the first video, I'm going to do something where I like jump on the couch to turn on the TV and my dog goes flying in the air, right? Well, my dog is not the one flying, it's gonna be the toy. So I'm going to be turning my camera vertical because I'm gonna be shooting this for TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. Of course, you don't have to, but since that's the social media platforms that I'm creating content for, that's how I'll be filming mine. Okay, and I'm all done with the filming, that quick. So pretty much what I did was for the first shot, I went and I acted like I was grabbing up the remote from the couch. I was turning on the remote and I was jumping onto the couch. For the other shot, I took a shot of my dog sitting on the arm of the couch, so that way you had a reference for where the dog was. And then for the last shot, I took the toy and I threw it up into the air. And then I recorded it coming down. Next is to bring it into a software in order to edit it all. And I'll show you exactly which software we're using. Now, when it comes to editing your footage, what are you gonna use? Well, like I said before, there's tons of software out there. Whether you're using it on your phone or whether you're using it on your computer, there's both paid and free, each one having its own advantages. So for me, I like to use a software called Davinci Resolve. Davinci Resolve is completely free, but there's also a studio version that you can pay for if you decide that this is something that you want. The free version does not limit you. There are some features that are missing, but none of which are really going to handicap you at all. I used the free version of this software for years before I ever thought about investing any type of money into it. So with that being said, go ahead and give that a download, install that for your respective platforms, and I will show you what it looks like once you hop in. So once you have Resolve installed, this is the screen that you will be greeted with. A black box, your files over here on the left, and a whole bunch of nothing. So to get this set up, like I was saying, I'm going to be doing this content for TikTok, Reels, a lot of that vertical content, that phone type content. So the very first thing I'm going to do before anything else is I'm going to change this to reflect what it would look like on my phone. So the way to do that is down here in the bottom right, you see this gear icon. You are just going to change the timeline resolution. This is going to go from 1920 to 1080 to what we want, which is the exact opposite of that. So 1080 by 1920, and you will see that change happen, and now it reflects more of that vertical format. Perfect. So we're almost ready to get started. The next thing that we need is our actual footage that we recorded. Now, of course, you can get your footage from your phone or your camera onto your computer in multiple ways. I'm not going to go over every single way, but you can USB cord and drag it over to your computer. You can email it. You can drop it in multiple different ways. But in this case, I already have dragged my files onto my computer, so I'm just going to navigate to the folder where I have that file system. And that's going to be over here. For me, it's going to be completely different for you. And I am going to drag the clips that I know that I recorded specifically for this scenario. So I'm going to grab my clip of the dog, and I can preview it right here. I'm going to grab the next 4 clips that all pertain to this tutorial. So perfect. So we have our files. I drag them down into our media section down at the bottom. I can preview them by dragging over, or I could even play the clips right from here if I wanted to. So we have the 5 clips down here, and the next thing we are going to do is we can go right over here to the edit tab. Once we are over on the edit tab, this is probably the screen that you're most familiar with if you're familiar with video editing. You've probably seen something along the lines of a timeline down at the bottom, a viewer in the middle, and a whole bunch of nothing everywhere else, and some confusing stuff over here, none of which that we even need to dive into today. So the very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to drag our footage right here on the timeline. But you can see our footage is in a completely different direction than what our view is showing. We're trying to make vertical content, yet our footage is in a horizontal format, but it's still backwards, a whole bunch of black space, so we got to correct all that. Now, of course, right from here, what we can do is we can select our clip, we can go over here to the rotation angle, and we can just set it to 90 degrees by just double clicking, setting it to 90, and then zooming in on it. But we would have to do that for every clip. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Control Z and undo all of that. I am going to highlight all of my clips on the left side. I'm going to rotate all of them to 90 degrees. And then this comes from doing it multiple times, but I do know that the zoom amount that works best for me is 910. So 1.90. Correction, 1.910. That tends to work out the best for me, but you can zoom it into as much or as little as you'd like. So now that we've made those changes, we should drag this on and we should see that reflected. Takes up the full screen and we are good to go. So we have the first clip. Now what? Well, now we go ahead and start editing. In this case, we can play it if we wanted to. We have a couple tools and we'll only be using a couple of them because that's all we really need. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to shorten this. We don't need 5 seconds of my dog just looking to its left. So what we're going to do is we're going to take about 2 seconds of this. So let's go ahead and go right about here. That should be good. And we're going to use our first tool, which is the razor tool, the blade tool, however you want to call it. And we're just going to cut. Now that we've cut this portion off, we're going to select the arrow key again. And we are going to select the first clip that we don't need. And there are two different methods of deleting. We can hit backspace, and that deletes what we selected. And you see that our file clip is still right over here. Or we can do what's called a ripple delete, where we still select it, we press the delete key, and it moves our file all the way to the left. Now, of course, if we have multiple clips, it's not going to move it all the way to the left, it's going to move it to the edge of the next clip. So if I deleted something right in here, this clip would come sliding in and line up right along this side. Doesn't always mean it's going to go all the way to the far left. It'll go into the next edge, the border, the next thing it hits. So now that we've done that and we have a lot shorter clip of my dog, we can move on to the next clip. So the next clip should be of me walking around the couch. So I drag that onto the timeline. In this case, I am zooming out some, and you can zoom in and out from your timeline by holding Alt and mouse wheeling up or down, and that'll zoom in or out. So I am zooming out just so I see the entire clip. And once again, I have an extremely long clip. And I did multiple takes, one of which I included a jump. Now, I know that I want the jump in the video. So what I do know that I can pretty much take the razor tool, cut it right here, select all of this, hit the delete key, watch that move over, and go right here. And I know that I don't need anything past this portion, so I can just grab the end here and drag it on in, or do exactly what we've done before and cut, select, and delete. Now, of course, there are hotkeys for all these tools that I'm using, but I'm keeping it simple and showing that you don't need to overcomplicate a lot of these easy things just by clicking, dragging, and going forward. So I'm going to drag this over to the edge here. And what do we have now? So we have a video of my dog looking, me walking towards the remote, and me jumping on the couch. So I am going to cut this down some simply because I want the video to start while I'm already in motion. It tends to just look better if you're already in motion versus like starting from a standstill or preparing to walk. It makes it look like it's a skit. So instead, let's go ahead and start from being in motion. So about right here. Drag that back over, and let's watch that again.
New episode of The Boys.
Good. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and grab the second clip, or the third clip in this case. So we grab it on. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. We can quickly click and drag through if we want to scrub and watch each one, or we can use the arrow keys if we want to go frame by frame. So what are we looking for in this clip? Well, for this clip, I know that I jumped. Not only did I jumped multiple times, but I made a facial expression on one that I'd like to keep. So right there. So I'm going to line this up so that the jump starts already in motion. I'm going to drag this all the way here. I'm going to play it forward. And I'm going to cut it right there. Perfect. And now I can drag that over. And starting from this previous clip, we have me grabbing the remote, jumping on the couch, and then looking up. Now, of course, you will run into this a lot of the times where you film two different clips and you notice that the clips don't line up. You see that I'm jumping in one and I've clearly landed on the couch, yet in the second clip, I'm jumping and landing on the couch again. So, in between, we're going to have the jump mid-air. We are going to cut this back, and we are going to start with this one with the jump already mid-progression. So now when we line this up, the jump should look like it's one continued jump over 2 frames. So much better. Perfect. And now we have the next clip of me looking up. Just an exaggerated facial expression. And That's really all there's to that one. So I'm going to have where the facial expressions already started, trim that down. And then on the last clip right here, we have the fake dog flying through the air, just going up and down. And I think it hit the mic there. So I'm going to get a good clip of it just flying up and down. One that makes sense. Does that one work? Nah, I think there's one more that looks a little bit better right there. So that's the one I want. The dog starts going up, and then it comes down. So we'll cut that one. That's all we'll use for this one. And we'll bring that over. So now, watching all the way from the beginning, what do we have? Dog staring. Me jump up on the couch. I look up in the air. I do a face. And then the dog goes flying. Perfect, right? Not quite. So we have all the editing, all the clips cut, but it doesn't really tell a story. We get the idea of what it's supposed to tell, but it doesn't seem like it goes in the way that it should go. It doesn't seem like it flows. So this is the next step to editing. We've cut the clips down. We've highlighted what we want in our video, but now we need to go about shortening it and make it flow. So our goal should be to roughly cut this time in half. It's a lot of wasted time in here. We have 9 seconds. And a lot of nothing happening in that 9 seconds. So reality, we should be aiming to cut this down in half. So let's go and get started on the next step of editing. So for the first clip, we have my dog staring to the left and me walking in from the same direction my dog's staring. So in this case, let's go ahead and take this first clip, bring it to the second level. By doing this, we can take our next clip and drag it to the left as well. Not only does this shorten this up on the timeline, but what it does, it allows the audio to be played while we're still seeing the dog in the first clip. So I'm already walking, we don't see any of that, and I pick up the remote and then I start the jump. So let's go ahead and move this over a little bit. So we have me walking, the dog there, and then it starts to jump. So now let's go ahead and drag this over to match. And what are we looking at now?
So to the boys.
Good. Okay, so we cut that down some.
So to the boys.
We can even drag this clip because we don't need it to be that long. So we can go right there.
So to the boys.
Jump. And there's clearly too much time where nothing's happening. So what then we're going to do is something similar to what we did over here, where we take the clip of the dog flying in the air and we drag that back right after he lands, because he's signaling something's happening right here. So we should reflect what's happening right there as well. So he jumps, and then we show the dog flying. So let's go ahead and you'll see this happens a lot where you're trying to get this perfect lineup and you keep sticking to the left, sticking to the right. It's because there's snapping that's on, and it'll tend to snap at either the cursor or the edge of the clips. What I just tend to do simply is just move it out of the way, and then you're able to get a little more fine detail in between and go from there. There's also hotkeys to turn off clipping. Personally, I like the snapping, but that's going to be preference for a different video. So now we have him jumping and then the dog going up. So let's go ahead and get that a little bit more in line. So let's go ahead and get the landing. Eyes open right there. And let's go ahead and get the dog flying up. Let's go ahead and trim that. Back up some. And drag it over. So now we have him landing. And I'm not going to show the dog go back down. I would just want to show it go up. And then we could even probably cut the rest of this and go straight to our next clip. And I'll bring it on the second level so that the audio still stays from this one, but it goes to here. And what we'll do for this one, we'll fade it to black. We'll do a little effect so that it fades out gray. That way it looks sad, and go from there. So we have coming in.
New episode of the boys.
That was a little too fast. So if we look at that again, that clip happens a little too quick and it jumps to the next one. So let's go ahead and see what we can do from there. So we're gonna zoom back in, jumps up. So what do we do? If we don't want to include it coming down, but we don't have any more clip of it going just up, one thing that we can do is we can right click our video clip. We can go to change clip speed, and we can slow it down so that the clip goes in slow motion. But what I'm going to do is do it right from here. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click this drop down icon right here. And what that allows me to do, allows me to zoom into my clip and do the same thing where I can change the clip speed. The only difference is it lengthens the clip as I do it as well. So in this case, I'm slowing, and you can see the retime speed down at the butt, right there in the middle. I'm slowing this clip down. So now it should be going a little bit slower as it flies through the air. And I should be able to... And we're going to slow that down a little bit more. Perfect. So now he jumps on the couch, dog goes flying, it goes slow motion, and then it can go straight to his face, and we'll slow that down as well. So that way that goes in slow motion, the other clip goes in slow motion, and we should be good. It should come out with a pretty good result that looks really well. So once again, we zoom in on the clip with the Alt and the mouse button to zoom in. We click the drop down menu, we click the arrow, we hit retime speed so I can slow it down, and then I just slow it down some. So that way it also goes in slow motion. Go right from there. And one thing you'll probably notice is that when you slowed it down, it had this little choppy look to it. And that's what happens when you change the speed of video clips that weren't intended for that speed. One thing that you can do to make that a little bit better, select your clip, go right over here to the Properties tab. For the retime, hit nearest. And you should notice that that changes so much when it comes to the speed and the smoothness of the video. And if you notice that nearest isn't doing it for you, right? It's not smoothing it out enough for you. You can try the other settings, both optical flow and frame blend. And you'll notice frame blend is smoother, but it has this like kind of blurry look that goes with it. And I think that fits the aesthetic of this video. Or you can try optical flow and see if that makes it a little bit smoother for you. In this case, they look about the same, so I'm going to just leave it as is on optical flow or change it back to frame blend. Doesn't really matter for the sake of this video. But we also want to do the same thing here. I'll just change that to frame blend, and that's it. So as you can see, we've completely finished editing our video, right? It goes up, we can put this out, and that's it. We're done, right? And how would you go about finishing that up? Well, you would click the Deliver tab because you want to deliver the final product. Over here, you would put in a name. Let's call this Dog Bounce. Dog Bounce. We select where we want this to go. We select the format, and in this case, the one I tend to use is MP4. And we would just hit add render to queue, and we can go ahead and render that out. Now, of course, I'm going to do a couple more changes to this just to kind of get it to the effect that I want. But this is a completed product as is. It's completely fine, and it doesn't have to be that hard when it comes to content creation. Just like that, you were able to create your first piece of content, edit your first piece of content, and now you can post it wherever you like. But say you wanted to take this a little bit further. Say you finish this and you're like, what else can I do to make this just a little bit funnier? It just doesn't seem to have the impact that I want it to have. So now we start getting into the next level of things. One thing that we can do is we can have this like very intense music playing here, this sad music playing right here at the end here. So let's go ahead and add some music. Now, of course, when it comes to music, music is subjective, but the way to add the music is the same way that you added your media. You find wherever your music is stored on your folder or your computer or your files or your hard drive, wherever you have that, and you locate that. For me, I have mine in this music folder all the way in here, and I have a specific song that I'm going to use for mine, but you can use anything. I add that to my project package right there at the bottom. I drag my music in, and we see this huge bar of music. Now, for me, I don't need all this. I only need probably like 3 seconds of this max. So I'm just going to drag it all the way in. And we heard all that crazy noise there from me just dragging it and scrubbing it. I am going to just drag it right underneath here because this is where I want it to be intense. And let's see what that sounds like. Okay, so I like it. Let's go ahead and bring it back though, because the intense thing starts right here. So let's go ahead and bring it back, and let's start it right here. Good. Perfect. So now we have jumping up, and that's where it ends. Cool, great, right? Perfect. Okay, and now once again, we could call that done, and we can go to the Deliver tab and finish that out if we wanted to. This is a perfectly fine piece of content. If you wanted to put this out, there's nothing wrong with this at all. But you can always take it a step further if you wanted to. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add what's called an adjustment clip. What this is it's a fake blanket clip that allows me to edit this clip without touching this. So for example, say I highlight this clip, which is over top of this, everything that's underneath this will be affected by this adjustment clip, and I decide to zoom all the way in like we did before. Well, now we're zoomed in on my lips. One thing that you'll notice is that if I drag the adjustment clip out of here, everything else is back to normal. It's only the adjustment clip that has any effect. And if I were to go over here to the toy dog in the air and bring the adjustment clip, we see that it zooms in. So the adjustment clip is a way to not affect your direct clips, but still make adjustments in order to be non-destructive to your video clips. So in this case, I don't want it zoomed in that much. I'm actually using this for a gray color, if you will. So I want it to go up in the air, and I want it to start going gray as it's going in there and slowly zooms on his face. So I'm going to cut the clip down to about right here, and I'm going to look at it, and right at the end here, and I apologize because we are getting a little confusing here, but once again, this is just extra, and taking your time on this, you'll notice that it's not too bad. We are going to do what's called a keyframe. So we are going to go to the end, and we are going to zoom in to where we think would be a good ending place for our zoom. So I think right here, maybe zoom out a little bit because I don't want the zoom to be dramatic. I want the zoom to go at a nice pace of just boom. So I'm going to go about right here. I'm going to click these 2 diamonds on the right side that because I've affected the zoom and the position. Now I'm going to go to the beginning of the clip and I am going to type in 1 and 0 as well as 0. Now, why did I type in those values? It's because those are the default values that are on the adjustment clip. Now it's back to what it looked like before we typed anything in. But we notice the numbers at the end are exactly what we zoomed it into. So now when we play that through, it should go into his face. Just like that. So now we have dramatic music, we have a slow zoom, and we know that he's looking at the dog in the air. And that's how the clip ends. And once again, this is a perfect piece of content. This is completely fine. We could finish this up right here and we could call it done if we wanted to. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your content. Do not stress on how you want to present it. It's better to create and put it out there than it is to stress over each individual clip. But once again, we can also do a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to make this lose its color to make it more dramatic. So as it zooms in over time, it also goes gray. So the way to do this is we are going to look at a whole new tab. So we are going to click the adjustment clip. We are going to go to the color tab. And now we see all this crazy stuff that we have no idea what we're looking at. Don't worry about a single bit of it for right now. None of it matters, so don't stress out. So what we want to make sure we have highlighted is our adjustment clip, because once again, we don't want to be destructive to our normal clip, so we are clicking the adjustment clip, or you can select it right down here. You notice there's bars, but we know that we have the adjustment clip at the top. If we click the adjustment clip, it'll highlight over here. And you might be looking at yours and you're going, hey, I don't have anything set up. I don't have any of these nodes. I don't have anything on the top and bottom and all that. Well, if you don't, you see this right up here. You have clips, which will bring your clips right down there. Say you don't have this on the right. You don't need to worry about it. But if you don't have it, you could click the effects tabs, the nodes tabs, and that's kind of how you have yours to lay out like mine. But you don't need any of that except for the clips right over here so that you have an idea of what you're selecting. So perfect, we have the adjustment clip selected. Now, what are we going to do to make it go gray? Super simple. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to go right over here to the keyframes tab. It's another diamond like you saw before. And we're just going to click this keyframe right here. Now, the reason why we clicked this one is because it's saying corrector 1, which is the corrector right here. And we just want it to keyframe at that point. So the way to lose color, the way to make it gray and black is to affect the saturation. You notice that if we take away saturation, it goes gray. If we put it all in there, it comes oversaturated. It looks a little bit crazy. So what we are going to do is we are going to keep it at 50 for frame 1. So now that it's at 50, we can keep it there. And we're just going to scrub forward just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Just a little bit, so that way we can go to 0. And now we'll notice that over that time, it goes from color to 0, colored to gray, colored to gray, colored to gray. So now when we play it back, we should see that affected over here. Just like that. And of course, if you wanted to slow down that, you could go back and you could, not do the keyframe right here. You could do the keyframe over here. You could do the keyframe over here. It's completely up to you, but that's reflected over here and over here for your keyframes. Just like that. So now we are done, right? Well, if you want to be, there's nothing wrong with being done. I'm going to do one last thing to completely finish this up all together, and that is just to add one more adjustment clip. And I am just going to modify the colors on mine really quick. Now we can hit deliver, we can go over, we can select the area that we plan on putting this. For me, it's over here and all this and gotta hunt it down. Craziness. I add it into here. You can see all the pieces of content I've created for the different platforms. I hit save and I add it to render. We see that pop up in the upper right hand corner and I just hit render all and we are done. And that's it. Just that simple. You created your first piece of content. It's out there. You can post it anywhere. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too long, too boring. Going forward, a lot of the videos are going to be a lot shorter, a lot more entertaining. But if you do wish to see like the results of all my content posted out there, feel free to follow me on TikTok, Reels, and all that other good stuff. And feel free to tag me in the content you create. I'd be more than happy to check it out. Thank you and have a good one.